Have you ever seen fire fall from the sky? I have, and it was terrifying and majestic all at the same time. In today's verse, Moses and Aaron finished up their blessing over the people of Israel, and then something incredible happened. Fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed the offering. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen fire come down from heaven in the Old Testament. In fact, it's happened several times, but this is the first time the people saw it. And their response was they fell on their faces. There's a couple things I want to point out here. First, what did they see? They saw fire come from the presence of the Lord. That means that this fire wasn't just a random fire. This was a supernatural fire. This was a demonstration of God's power. Second, what did they do when they saw this fire? They fell on their faces. This wasn't just a spontaneous reaction. This was a commanded response. You see, when God's people saw the fire, they knew what it meant. They knew it meant God was present. When God is present, you get on your face. It says in Psalm 22, "In your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand are everlasting pleasures." But it also says in Psalm 22, "The fear of man will turn to praise and worship in your name, O Lord." So the people, when they saw the fire, they knew it meant God was there. And they also knew that God deserved their praise and their worship. And so they did what? They fell on their faces. They bowed before God. They acknowledged God. They praised God. They worshiped God. And you know what's amazing, friends? God's fire still has that power. When we see God's power at work in our lives, when we see God's presence in our lives, what should our response be? It should be to fall on our faces and worship Him. You know, way back in the Old Testament, God's people could see physical fire fall from heaven. And when they saw it, they knew what it meant. But today, we don't see physical fire. We see spiritual fire. We see the Holy Spirit at work in our lives, the power of the Holy Spirit at work in our lives. And when we see that, what should our response be? Should be to fall on our faces and worship Him. So let's take a moment right now to acknowledge the presence of God. Let's take a moment to thank God for His blessings in our life. Let's take a moment to praise His name and to worship His name. And let's remember, God's fire doesn't just warm, it commands. And if we're going to walk with God, we better obey His voice.